Hey friend, Chris Vandeviver here from WhyLogicProRules.com, the website that helps you get the most you can out of Apple's Logic Pro 10. Today we are continuing our 30-day series of Why Logic Pro Rules. And today I want to dig into another quintessential plugin to the Logic experience, that is the compressor. While this is not a deep dive into how to use compression, I'll link to one of my other videos right in this video. So if you're looking for more information on how to use compression, just click that link and it'll take you to that video. Once again, we can just head over to the audio effects section and from the drop down select under Dynamics Compressor. But just like the channel EQ and the linear EQ, I want to bring to your attention some easy ways to very quickly open the compressor. Here in the inspector, you can see I have what looks like a little line, and this is the gain reduction meter. It shows us what sort of gain reduction is occurring, whether it's a compressor or a limiter in Logic. And if you don't see this in the inspector or in the mixer, just once again, right-click anywhere and under Channel Strip Components, Gain Reduction Meter. And if we open the mixer, we can do the same thing. Cool, we can also open an instance of the compressor by clicking on this Gain Reduction Meter. And just like that, we have our compressor. If we copy and paste this compressor, I'm going to pick one of the other models. And just to demonstrate, if we click on the Gain Reduction Meter, it opens the first compressor in the series. If we have a limiter in the channel strip, if we select limiter here, and let's just close it down. And if I open once again by clicking on the gain reduction meter, we open the limiter that's first in series. This is a gain reduction meter for whatever dynamic plugin is first in the chain. And if we just remove our compressor, and let's remove the limiter, but we'll place channel EQ, I guess. If I hold Option and click on the gain reduction meter, we open a compressor first in line in the chain. Very helpful. Cool. Now, I love the compressor because it's not just one compressor. It offers us 7 different shades of compression to use in our projects, starting with a very clean, transparent platinum digital compressor, and then following is 6 different models of analog compression based on hardware units. We have a Studio VCA that roughly models a Focusrite hardware compressor, Studio FET and Vintage FET that models an 1176 style of compression, Classic VCA, which models a DBX, Vintage VCA, which is more like the SSL bus compressor, and the Vintage Opto, which is roughly the LA2A emulation. Now, if we look in the manual for the effects, under compressor, it says that compressor emulates the sound and response of several professional level compressors. So the Logic manual specifies emulation, but I would say that these are more loosely inspired by these different models. Because if I head over to Firefox here and open an image of an LA2A, there's far less knobs on the actual LA2A unit than there is in our version of the compressor. Much more control, which is amazing, but it's not a one-to-one direct emulation. But what I love is between all of these different controls, you can be as pinpointed as you need to be with a particular signal. The attack goes as fast as 0 milliseconds to 200 milliseconds. Release goes as fast to 5 milliseconds to 5K, or you can even set auto release. So the release is adjusting to the incoming material, which is very cool. The knee allows us to determine how hard or soft we want the compression to react to the incoming signal as it passes the threshold. And we also have controls for input gain and output gain. But I'm going to show you a couple other tricks for manipulating the compressor. Additionally, what I love is the different metering options within the compressor. We have a classic gain reduction meter, looks roughly like a VU meter. But we also have a graph that shows us as the audio passes the threshold, we'll see audio go from left to right, and we can see the compression reacting to the incoming audio. So let me actually select one of the sounds in this session. I'm going to go with this lead here, and we'll open the compressor, and we're just going to watch the incoming audio. I'm actually going to set the ratio to 1:1, threshold to 0, and we'll pick something like the Vintage VCA. So we can see what's going on here, and you can expand and contract the compressor as well. Let's just watch the incoming audio. And let's see how the gain reduction reacts to the incoming audio as I adjust the controls. It's so awesome. This is the kind of thing that is very helpful when you're not too sure what's going on with the compressor. You can visually see what's happening. Additionally, what I love about the compressor is the different models of distortion we can use to create more of an analog type of vibe. Now, these distortion models are not specific to any unit. They're the same regardless of the model that you choose. We have soft distortion, hard distortion, and clipping. And the distortion becomes more prominent the closer the signal gets to 0 dB on our peak meters. So for now, let's just turn all of this back to 1 and 0. And I just want to see where this signal is hanging on our peak meters. Roughly -12. Okay, let's start driving the input signal closer to 0. So I'm going to bring down the output, bring up the input, and we're working with soft distortion. I'm going to bring this up to about 15. So now we can see that the volume is going to get louder on the graph here, and we'll hear the different styles of distortion. So to my ears, the soft distortion is the most prominent sounding distortion of the three. But what we're going to experience here, because the audio is so close to 0 that the moment we start to introduce ratio, bring down the threshold, the compressor is going to start immediately reacting to this sound. Let's just take a listen. So there's not a lot of headroom before the compressor starts to react to this super loud signal. So what I like to do is, if I have a healthy input level, I like to leave the input level set to 0. We'll bring down the output. But I'm going to use this makeup gain. And what the makeup gain does, instead of bringing up the level before hitting the compression, it's bringing up the level essentially after the compression, but before the distortion. So we're bringing this up by 15 dB. And you'll be able to see on the graph that the audio isn't nearly as loud, so we have room to finesse the compressor. So you can actually drive the signal into the compressor. It's really, really cool. The other thing that I think makes the compressor very special is the sidechain capabilities. Let's hone in on maybe a drum kit, something with a little more action going on. And if we open the compressor over here, we're just going to leave everything set 1-to-1 for now. And we're going to introduce the sidechain, and we're going to start focusing in on some specific elements of the kit. First, let's just take a listen to what this kit sounds like. Cool, we have a kick, we have some tom sort of percussion sounds, a cowbell. With the sidechain, we can actually set the filter to listen, and we can choose either an internal sidechain, so it's just looking at the drum kit, or an external sidechain. Now, I've gone over external sidechain, so I'm not going to dig into that, but I'll link to the video right within this video. But I want to show you how the internal sidechain works. We're going to now listen to a specific range of the frequency range, and we can determine what this is going to look like, much like the channel EQ. We can have a low pass filter, so as we bring this down, we're hearing less and less of the high end. Or a high pass filter, so as we bring up the frequency, we're hearing less and less of the low end. Or a band pass, where we kind of hone in on a specific region based on the center frequency. So let's hear this. You can see that the compressor is reacting to that cowbell and not so much the kick drum or anything else in the mix. That's the beauty of the sidechain. The internal sidechain allows us to hone in on a specific element of the instrument that we want to compress. And we can also look at other signals outside of the instrument that we're working on. So if we set this filter from listen to on, check it out. We're catching the tops of those kicks, but not as much as we're catching that cowbell. And we're kind of bringing up the cowbell a little bit in the mix. So I think it's really, really important to not overlook the tools that come in Logic. The channel EQ, linear EQ, the compressors, the dynamic processors, they're all just amazing tools. So I hope this was helpful for you. If it was, as always, I highly suggest subscribing to the YouTube channel, Why Logic Pro Rules, or subscribing on the website itself, whylogicprorules.com. Every week I'm posting new videos, new emails, and posts to help you get the most you can out of Apple's Logic Pro 10. See you tomorrow in the next video in this series.